We now have a video on dance on Abhinaya by Pujita Krishna. With a master's degree in fine arts, specializing in dance from the University of California, Irvine, where her thesis was on the revival of Vilasini Natyam at Ranganatha Swami Temple, Hyderabad. Pujita Krishna has a multidisciplinary background in dance. She is primarily an Indian classical performer with expertise in Vilasini Natyam and Kuchipudi, while she also has the knowledge of Western dance, such as modern, jazz, and flamenco. Along with this, Pujita has a second master's in English literature and a PG diploma in environmental education and management. She is a Doordarshan graded artist for Kuchipudi and a recipient of the Junior Fellowship of the Ministry of Culture. As a writer of fiction, she has published short stories. As a writer of fiction, she has published short stories and also a novella, Smitten. She currently writes for The Hindu as its dance critic. Pujita Krishna is the artistic director of Feet on Earth, Secunderabad, and has performed in many dance festivals across the country. Let's have a look at the video.
Namaskar. At the outset, I'd like to congratulate and extend my gratitude to the Advaita Academy for organizing this wonderful and unique online global festival of oneness celebrating Adi Shankara. It is indeed a very unusual and much needed initiative, especially at a time like this when the world is reeling under the impact of this very strange virus. Today's presentation is Nature Symbolisms, Everyday Examples and Humor in Adi Shankara's Verses, an exploration through Abhinaya. I decided to work on this aspect of Adi Shankara's works because I felt that this would be very interesting visually, also because it is commonly misunderstood, or it is one perceives that the Advaita philosophy or Vedanta itself is so abstruse that it is difficult or challenging to present it in the form of dance. However, Adi Shankara's works, even in a text like Atmabodha, is replete with examples, metaphors, taken from everyday life and nature, and that gives a lot of material to the dancer to work with. And so I felt that it would be interesting to look at some of these verses and work on them. This is just a modest effort, and I know that there is a bigger repository that needs to be explored. I wanted to sort of narrate a small story that I happened to come across while I was reading up on Adi Shankara and his works. It is said that while he was traveling through Karnataka, he came upon this particular place by the river where he saw a cobra that had spread its hood in order to shield a frog that was about to give birth. And this was such a moving and unusual sight because these two animals are by nature foes of one another. And so what better example could nature have provided of oneness than this? And so Shankara decided to set up Sringeri Mutt right there. So now, speaking of my presentation, I have chosen to restrict myself to about 10 verses, and I have picked a few from Atmabodha, which is not strictly a literary work, but it is a prakarana text which is prescribed to students of Advaita and Vedanta. And again, it's a simple text which goes into the depths of Advaita philosophy, but is replete with several very simple lucid examples which are drawn from everyday life to teach this concept, the concepts. So I have picked a few verses from that. Of course, Soundarya Lahiri and Shivananda Lahiri, both these are iconic and much celebrated works of Adi Shankara, and interestingly also for me, because usually people perceive that bhakti doesn't have a place in Vedanta or Advaita school of philosophy, but that is not true, because these two works are testament to the fact that Shankara addressed the Lord Ishvara as well as Devi in all their physical, with all their physical attributes. That I found most fascinating was Amarushatakam, which is attributed to Adi Shankara, and legend has it that while he was debating Mandana Mishra, who was another authority on Mimamsa, the latter's wife stepped in to, when she felt that her husband was losing, and she questions Shankara's authority, saying that while he was knowledgeable in all aspects of philosophy, he didn't know much about the Shringara aspect of life, or didn't live the life of a householder. At which point Shankara takes leave from the debate for a while, and then he proceeds to enter into the body of the just dead king called Amaru, and then proceeds to live about 100 days in his body as a householder king with his many wives. And thus was born this work called Amarushatakam. Shatakam as in 100 verses. So it is a repository of 100 verses, all of which are dedicated to Shringara aspect of life, the relations between man and women and woman. And also it deals with both the shades. There is Sambhoga Shringara as well as Vipralambha. Sambhoga is when the two are together, the joy in togetherness, and Vipralambha is when the man and the woman are separated for various reasons. Both these aspects are addressed, and very interesting work, because and every verse is rich with details of. Also, it is a very it's a peek into the life of the times in of that era, and comes alive with these characters who seem so real, and the various shades of emotions that are presented are very are relevant and universal even to this day. So I picked a few verses from Amarushatakam as well. Now finally, just a word about my approach and treatment. I am approaching this as a lecture demonstration, sort of. This is not by any means a formal performance, given the situation and the challenges. So I have, I'll be reading out the verses in Sanskrit and giving you a meaning, an overall meaning of the verse. This is again, it's not a commentary on these verses. I'm not a scholar, but I shall give you the overall meaning of the verses and then go on to depict them. I have not been able to, because of the short notice, etc. It was not possible for me to tune the verses or set them to music. So I will be resorting to explaining the verses in English while I'm depicting them, and this is only because to aid comprehension for everyone to understand, because the language of dance is not something that it is a little not everyone follows it. So that one, and secondly, I may not follow the order in which the verse appears, as in the meaning. I may have to reorder it a little bit in order to as artistic license for me to get the meaning of the verse across. At some points I may even depart a little bit, to extend an idea. As a dancer, as an artist, I think I can indulge in that artistic liberty, just here and there, just to work on a particular idea, and that's it. So that would be my approach, and I truly hope that you enjoy my presentation. Namaste. So I'll begin my presentation with a text, two verses from this text called Atma Bodha, which is, as I mentioned earlier, it is a prakarana text that is used by the initial learners of Advaita philosophy, and it is a very it delineates the philosophy of Vedanta in a very simplistic manner, often citing examples from everyday life and from nature. So I thought it would be a good text to start with. These are, of course, it is not what one would considered literature, so there is no emotional content. But I thought I would pick one or two verses from this text because it would bring out the range of metaphors and symbolisms that Adi Shankara used in his writing. So I will start with this one verse, which is the 16th verse, and I'll just read it out. Vapu sushadibihi Osei yuktam yuktya avaghatakam atmanam antaram shuddham vivichya anulam yatha. So the meaning of this verse is that very simple and something that one can relate to. That just as a seed has, it's covered by what we call husk, and in order to get the grain of rice which actually we can consume and which gives us nourishment, one has to remove the husk. And Adi Shankara makes this comparison to tell us that the Atma is very much like that grain of rice. That the Atma, the embodied soul, is covered by several such encasings which are known as the 5 koshas. So these must be removed, and only then can the Atma emerge pure and refined. So I will depict it, and some verses I will depict in a seated position and some I will do standing. So, just as a grain of rice is covered with husk from a field of paddy, it is through a process of pounding that the husk, which is of no value, is separated from rice. Similarly, the Atma, which is within us, is covered with several sheets of the 5 koshas: Abhinaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, and it is through a process of internal pounding that this Atma will shed these sheets and emerge pure and refined. The second verse is also very simple, and I'll just read it down to you first. Dehendriya mano buddhi prakrutibhyo vilakshanam tadvrutti sakshinam vidya atmanam rajavat sada. Here the Atma is compared to a king, and he says that just as a king who watches the entertainment or the performances before him or the performers before him, and he is only a sakshi, he's a witness, but he does not participate in what he sees happening before him. Similarly, the Atma too, Shankara says, must and remains only a sakshi. The Atma is not the organs of action or organs of knowledge or any of these organs which cause us to create actions. So that's the crux of this verse, and I will depict it. Just as the king, seated in his throne in his court hall, watches the performance perform before him, he Atma within us remains seated in mind and is only a witness of all that unfolds before it, all the actions, and is not, it is separate from the Panchendriyas and the Jnanendriyas, the body, the mind, the intellect. It is separate from all this and only a witness. Now, the next three verses are from Shivananda Lahiri, and as I mentioned earlier, both Soundarya Lahiri and Shivananda Lahiri are celebration of the physical attributes of Lord Devi as well as Ishvara. Shivananda Lahiri, of course, is a celebration of Lord Shiva. And again, once again, we find a very rich description of the Lord and all of his heroic deeds and so on and so forth. Basically, the lore of Shiva is celebrated in this text. And also, there is abundant evidence of Shankara's use of humor, his use of irony, and so on in some of these verses. So this verse that I've picked is the 9th verse, and I'll just read it out. Gabhiram kasare vimsati nijane ghora vipine vishale shaile cha bhramati kusumartha jadamatihi samarpaikam cheta sarasija umanatha bhavate sukhena avasthatum jana iha na janati kim aho. Now, this is a very funny verse in which this is a taunt at all those people who feel that bhakti comes from the offerings that the devotees make to their Ishtadevta. And the bigger or the more superior or the bigger the offering, the more the bhakti. So this is a taunt at those kind of people. So he says that devotee, Lord, he addresses Shiva as the consort of Uma. And he says that, that devotee of yours who wishes to worship you with the most perfect flower. And he decides to, he goes all around looking for that flower. And where does he go? The poet tells us where he goes. He goes to that lake in that dense, deep, deserted forest on top of that tall mountain to look for that perfect flower. So look at the arduous journey the devotee has undertaken in order to find that flower. And the poet calls such a devotee Jadamati, somebody who is a little dim-witted, somebody who's low in IQ. He says, why does he have to go all the way there? Doesn't he know that that flower is right within you? And all he has to do is, seated wherever he is, all he has to do is think of you and the lotuses and the flowers right there. Doesn't he know this, my Lord? And I will now show this to you. O Lord Shiva, you who are the consort of Uma, that devotee who slightly dim-witted wants to worship you with the most perfect flower and looks fruit everywhere. He climbs a tall mountain and enters a deep, deserted forest where he encounters ferocious animals waters of a lake only to encounter even more strange animals. Doesn't he know, O Lord, that within the waters of his own mind, he has already found that flower to worship you with, seated where he is, just by thinking of you. The next verse is the 69th verse, and I'll just read it out. Jadata pasuta kalankita kutila charatvam cha nasti mai deva asti yadi rajanole bhavati bhavata bharannasya nasmi kim patram. I'll repeat. Jadata pasuta kalankita kutila charatvam cha nasti mai deva asti yadi rajanole bhavata bharannasya nasmi kim patram. So in this again there's a slight poignance and wistfulness in this particular verse. Very sweetly the devotee addresses the Lord and says that how unfortunate am I that I'm not any of these animals. I'm not either the skin of the tiger, I'm not the deer, I'm not the snake, nor am I the moon. I'm none of these. I don't have the qualities of these. Because if I did, then I would too perhaps been an ornament on your person. So it's a very poignant verse and ends with this note of wistfulness. Oh Lord, I am indeed most unfortunate. I am not the dead skin of the tiger, nor the frisky deer. I am not the moon that has blemishes on it, and I'm certainly not the snake that has a crooked path. I'm none of these. But if I were, I too would have been an ornament on your person. How unfortunate am I? Now, the final verse that I will be depicting from Soundarya Lahiri is the 32nd verse. This is again generously laced with humor, and I'll just read it out. Jwalogura sakala marati bhayada shvela kadam vatvaya trishta kincha kare dhruta karatale kim pakva jambu phalam jivyayam nihitascha siddha gutikava kantha dese dhruta kim te neela mani vibhoshana mayam shambho mahatman vada. So once again the poet addresses Shiva and questions him as to his sanity, saying, and this is the liberty that the poet takes. He says that, what were you thinking? That's the tone in which he asks or inquires of the Lord, and says, when you took the poison at the time that the ocean was churned, you took this poison that even the devas were so fearful of, and you put it in your hand and you treated it as if it were a fruit, and then you even placed it on your tongue, thinking that it was some sort of a medicine prescribed by a doctor. And then, not content with that, you lodged it in your throat. Did you think it was some sort of a gemstone or a precious stone that decorates your neck? What were you thinking, my Lord? So that is the meaning. What were you thinking, my Lord, at the time when the ocean was being churned and poison came out, that even the devas were afraid of? You took it in the palm of your hand, the poison, the drop of which was enough to cause death. You took it in your hand. What were you thinking? That it was a ripe fruit? Not content with keeping it in your hand, you placed it on your tongue. Did you think that it was a siddha? Who had prescribed a medicine? Furthermore, you swallowed it and lodged it in your throat. Did you think that it is a precious stone like sapphire that embellishes your neck? What were you thinking, Lord? The next two verses are from Soundarya Lahiri, and who doesn't know this beautiful work of Shankara's? So this is a beautiful work in which the beauty and majesty and the glory of the Devi is celebrated in all its aspects. And Shankara in fact liberally uses metaphors, symbolisms and references of nature to describe her beauty. And so I will begin with the 45th verse, and I'll just read it out. Aralaihi swabhagyadani kalabha sashribi karalaihi paritante vakram parihasati pankheruva ruchini darasmere yasmin dashana ruchi kunkim jalaka ruchire sugandhav madhyanti smaradahana chakshur madhuliha. Now in this verse the poet compares the face of the Devi to a lotus. This is a very common comparison. I mean, it is oft used in Indian literature. And the beauty is compared to the lotus. And in what way are the two same? He says, just as the bees hover around a lotus, your beautiful curls that frame your face, they appear to be like bees too. And just as a lotus opens and blossoms, with one petal at a time, you too reveal your beauty, one feature at a time. And as you open your lips to smile, the teeth, he likens the teeth to the filaments in the lotus. And then he goes on to say that your Lord, Ishvara or Shiva, who when in deep penance, when he was shot at by Manmadha, he destroyed or he reduced Manmadha to ashes in one instance. But when you dart your arrows of love at him, he is not able to resist you. So this is where again this is an instance of nature, amply using references of nature, at the same time a little hint of humor. Oh Devi, so beautiful is your face. It looks and compares to a lotus. Just as bees hover around a lotus, the dark curls framing your face appear to be like bees. And just as a lotus blossoms slowly, one petal at a time, you too reveal your beauty, one feature at a time. The teeth revealed through your parted lips resemble the filaments in a lotus. Was it not your husband, Lord Shiva, who, when lost in deep meditation, when Manmadha shot his arrow at him, he reduced the latter to ashes in an instant. But when you dart your arrows with your eyes, he reaches out to embrace you instantly. The second verse from Soundarya Lahiri that I will be depicting is the 56th verse, and it's a very interesting verse because again, as is with the previous case, here too there is a lot of references to nature. Once again, the Devi is addressed as Aparna. Aparna, as you know, is one of the forms of Devi in which she performs severe austerities. And at the time, she didn't even touch a leaf or eat a leaf, and that therefore the name Aparna. So the devotee or the poet addresses Devi as Aparna, and he says that your eyes, he's talking about her eyes, and he says that your eyes are so beautiful, they remain animeshava, means remain open all the time. And gods and goddesses usually don't blink, they don't have the blinking function as human beings do. So he says they remain open all the time, and then he says the unique feature of your eyes is that they extend all the way to your ears. And then picking up on that comparison, he immediately dwells on the comparison of the eyes with fish, and he says that the fish who looking at your eyes think that your eyes, which look like fish themselves, and they're so close to your ears, they're perhaps gossiping about them. So this is a very cute sort of reference about the fish. And he says the fish therefore then plunge into water, fearful and embarrassed. The other interesting thing is that it is a genius of the poet that he makes this comparison, because just as the Devi's eyes remain open at all times, so does the fishes. Even fish don't close their eyes. So that's another very interesting comparison. Then he says, not just like fishes, but your eyes even resemble lotuses. And what aspect of lotus do we know? We know that lotuses don't blossom, only blossom at night. So he says that your eyes resemble the lotuses, and the lotuses are so embarrassed about being compared with you that they remain, closed during the day and only blossom fearlessly during the night, in the dark way of the night. So I will be depicting this through Abhinaya. Devi, you as Aparna, who refused to eat a leaf. Your eyes are so beautiful. They remain open at all times. They resemble fish and extend all the way to your ear. The fish in the waters, looking at your eyes, which look like fish themselves and so close to your ears, are worried that perhaps they are gossiping to you about them, and so fearful, with their eyes open, they plunge deeper into the waters. On the other hand, your eyes look like lotuses, and the lotus themselves remain hidden during the day, fearful and embarrassed of being compared to your eyes. But as soon as the moon lights up the sky, in the wave of darkness, lo and behold, the lotus blossom fearlessly, as no one will compare them to your eyes in the dark. Now, I've picked 3 verses from Amarushatakam, and the very first verse that I will be showing is the 55th verse. I'll read it out first. Duradutsukam-agate vivalitam samhashini svaritam samshlipyatyarunam ruhita vasane samkunchita bhulatam maninyas charananati jatikare bashpam vipurnam kshanam chakshurjata mahu prapancha chaturam jatagasi preyasi. So, very beautiful verse where obviously the Naika, the poet, is describing the anger of a Naika. Instead of directly telling us that she's angry, he says that, and this is perhaps one can construe a Khandita Naika, and he says that, the poet says that, the eyes of that woman whose lover has been faithless take on various forms. And what are these forms? I will show it through dance. How, when the lover has been faithless, eyes take on so many forms. When he's far away, they glance expectantly. When he arrives, they turn to the side. When he starts to talk, they dilate. When he grabs the garment, they turn red. And when he contrives to fall at the feet, they fill with tears. Now, the second verse from Amarushatakam is this one. Ekasmin shayane parangamukataya vitotaram tamyato ramyonyasya kriti sthitepya munaye samrakshato gauravam dampatyoha shanakaira pangavalanan vi shri vibhavat chakshishor bhagno manakalihi sahasara bhasa vyavrit kantha divaha. Here the situation is again the couple, all is not well with them, and they are lying in the same bed. Ekasmin shayane, they are lying together in the same bed, yet their faces are averted. And how do they reconcile? I'll show you through the actions. The couple lying in the same bed, but with averted faces, each suffering for the want of conversation, wanting to placate the other, but jealous of their own prestige. But as their eyes rolled to the corners, and their glances met, their hostility dissolved in laughter, and the couple passionately embraced each other. Now, this is the 50th verse from Amarushatakam. Bale natha vimuncha manini rusham roshan mayakim krutam Hedos masuname paragyati bhavan sarve paragha mayi Tatkim rodishi gadgadena vachasa kasya drito rudyate Nanve tanamama ka tvasmi daita nasmi tyato rudyate. This is a very, again, the couple, there seems to be something of a tiff between the two. However, the poet doesn't tell us what the problem is, and the interesting thing in this verse is that the whole verse runs as a dialogue, quick repartees, quick exchange of dialogues between the man and the woman. We do not know if they are married, but clearly there has been some miscommunication. So, and the verse also ends in a note of poignance. So I will do the actions in order to bear out the meaning. Oh, fair one, what is it, my lord? Cast away your troubled me. All sins are my own. You are not to be blamed. Why do you weep? In front of whom do I weep then? In front of me, of course. What am I to you? Beloved, I am not. Hence, I weep. I truly hope that you enjoyed my very humble and modest effort. I have a long way to go in my research as far as Advaita and Adi Shankara's works are concerned, but I hope that you enjoyed my sincere effort. Before I go, I'd like to thank, of course, Advaita Academy once more for giving me this opportunity. A couple of people I'd like to mention by name. I'd like to thank first and foremost my gurus, Padma Bhushan Swapna Sundari ji and Dr. Anupama Kailash, who initiated me in this journey of Abhinaya. For them, I'm eternally grateful, especially since whatever I know of Abhinaya comes from my training in Vilasini Natyam, which was an art form which was art form of the Telugu Devadasis. I'd like to thank Uday of the Sanskrit channel, he runs this YouTube channel called the Sanskrit channel, and also a teacher of Sanskrit who helped me with the pronunciation of the words and the meanings in some places. Also Ajish Menon, who's a Carnatic musician and a friend of mine, and a student of dance. Last but not the least, my mother Annapurna Chivukula, who is behind the camera right now. And before I go, I'd like to end with a shlok from Ishavasya Upanishad. Om Purnamadha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Pujita, for that scintillating performance in Abhinaya. And thank you all for attending this particular session by Pujita Krishna.